Hardball, the disturbing images of small children being torn from their parents were troubling enough to push the president to act, but nobody really expected that it could get worse. Last night it did. According to the Associated Press, Trump administration officials are sending babies as well as small children to what are called tender age shelters in South Texas. Lawyers and medical providers who spoke to the Associated Press described scenes of playrooms of crying preschool-age children in crisis. And while they insist the facilities are safe, they add that the small children have no idea where their parents are and are hysterical, crying and acting out. 4 days ago, Homeland Security officials told reporters, quote, "We are not separating babies from parents." We now know that's not true. The Detroit Free Press is reporting that two baby boys aged 8 months and 11 months were shipped to Grand Rapids, Michigan in the middle of the night. We're also hearing stories of children being sent as far as Kansas or even New York City, up to Harlem, where New York once shot this video of 5 young girls being escorted to a foster center after being separated from their parents. There those kids are. One Honduran woman told the New Yorker magazine that she has not seen her 5-year-old son in nearly 6 weeks and is extremely worried that she might be deported without him. Well, given the president's new executive order of late today, it's unclear what happens to the children already separated, the thousands of them already separated from their parents. For more, I'm joined by NBC's Jacob Soboroff, who's in McAllen, Texas, Father John Jenkins, president of the University of Notre Dame, and Christina Fiallo, co-executive director of Freedom for Immigrants. Well, I'm glad to have all three of you. Jacob, first, the facts of this story. Of those thousands of kids already torn from their parents, including kids that are just at the tender age level, are they going to get back to their parents anytime soon or at all?
We don't know, Chris. I just got off the phone, actually, with an official from HHS, the agency that has been responsible for housing these children that have been separated from their parents once they leave the custody of the Border Patrol. And they tell me that ultimately, whether or not those 2,500 or so kids that have been ripped from their parents down here on the southern border end up back with their parents, grandfathered essentially under this executive order, is up to the Department of Homeland Security. And I reached out to the Department of Homeland Security tonight, and we still don't have an answer. And that also leaves all of these children in limbo. I got to remind you, we still have not seen, we know about those 3 tender age shelters, but we still have not actually had our eyes on the girls that are detained and the toddlers and the infants that are detained. And we continue to ask to see them because despite the fact that the kids moving forward will be detained with their families, whether or not it's in ICE detention or some sort of other detention center, maybe even indefinitely, we don't know what happens to these 2,500 children.
So it's not a retroactive executive order. Just to be simple,
we don't know.
It's not a retroactive executive order.
Correct.
Okay, when you stay there, then we go to Father Jenkins, because, Father Jenkins, you hold a seat which is treasured in our country in terms of human rights, going back to Theodore Hesburgh on the Civil Rights Commission. I wanted you on the show tonight because I wanted, before we know what Trump was up to this afternoon, I wanted to know what people like yourself and the clergy and in academics think about this moment in history, because I think it is a moment in our history, and it's not a good one.
Well, I agree, Chris. It is a moral outrage that you're seeing across the political spectrum at this. And the reason is that families are so central to what holds us together as human beings. St. John Paul II called them the fundamental building blocks of society. And when the state intervenes to tear families apart, it's intervening at what is really at the heart of our values. And this is never what America has stood for. It's never been who we are as Americans. And I think that's why you're seeing such outrage at this practice of separating parents from children.
What do you say to those who support the president generally on immigration issues, or sort of hardliners in this case?
Well, look, we need secure borders. Everyone agrees with that. What worries me is the rhetoric demeans these people. I mean, to talk about them as rapists and criminals, it just isn't true. Most of them are people looking for a better life for their families. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have border security. We should. But treat these people as human beings. Don't treat them as animals or someone that we can take their rights away. That's what I think people are saying. Again, you could think what you want about immigration reform, but the starting point should be treat these people with decency and treat these families with decency.
Thank you, Father. Let me go to Christina on this. Kristen Fiala. You know, what Father just touched on is a very bad point in our history. For hundreds of years, the white people of this country, just to be ethnic about it for a moment, separated black people from their families. That was what slavery was all about. People each person having a price on their head, basically. You could sell people and separate them for money. And that went on for hundreds of years in this country. This was not a one-week thing like this thing. But this sort of goes back to that. The willingness for national policy to separate and break up families is now on the head of this country and those who support the government.
That is correct, Chris. The Trump administration's executive order to stop the separation of families, but to put them into family immigration detention facilities is not the solution. My organization, Freedom for Immigrants, has been visiting and monitoring immigration detention facilities for a decade, including family detention facilities, and we know what happens inside of there. It's awful. We released a report last year that found widespread sexual and physical assault in immigration detention facilities, including a young girl under 18 who filed a claim at the Carnes Detention Facility, a family detention facility in Texas, about sexual assault. A medical examination showed vaginal scarring and an STD. I know the American public really wants to see an immediate solution to this brutal reality that we're living in, but family immigration detention is not the solution. We need to abolish the immigration detention system and create true community alternatives to detention.
Thank you. We talked earlier about that. You have so much information on that. I hope everybody gets it eventually. In honor of World Refugee Day, former President Barack Obama weighed in on the Trump administration policy today of separating families. In a Facebook post, former President Obama wrote, "To be an American is to have a shared commitment to an ideal, that all of us are created equal, and all of us deserve the chance to become our parents and grandparents and generations before created for us. And it's something we have to protect for the generations to come. But we have to do more than say this isn't who we are. We have to prove it through our policies, our laws, our actions, and our votes." Let me go back to Jacob on that. Just to go back to you, just to seal this off. You don't know, we don't know, nobody knows what's going to happen to the 2,000 kids that some of them sent up to New York, some sent to Michigan. Their parents have no idea where they are, and some of the parents were lied to. I was reading today that some parents were told, "Oh, you'll see your kid in a couple days."
Yeah, they could be in 17 states and 100 different shelters, Chris. But I just want to go back to what President Obama said there, because the words are inspiring. But to echo the point that we just heard, President Obama and his administration operated and opened shelters just like the ones that we got to look into just this past week, the ones with the cages and the mats and the Mylar blankets. If you were displeased, disgusted by seeing children alone in them, that's a policy that dates back not the children, but the detention center itself to administrations before this one. So when it comes to immigration, if you feel like you want to change after what you've seen, it's not just about children being detained alone, but how all immigrants are detained when they come into this country illegally.
This debate's going to go on, and it's human now, and we've seen the human face of it like we never thought we'd see. I thank you so much, Jacob, of course, from McAllen, Texas, Jacob Sobroff. And thank you, Father John Jenkins of I was going to say Holy Cross. That's my school. From Notre Dame, thank you. University of Notre Dame. And Christine Fialo, thank you. Jacob will be reporting on the border crisis on Dateline Sunday. That's the dividing line, it's called. It airs at 7 Eastern on NBC.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.